Time and death, two constants many of us perceive as inescapable and ultimately terminal. We try not to place too much thought on them because at first glance they seem to point towards something final, that we are ever being dragged towards a void, and we would rather not conceive of it because it is kinder to us to keep believing that we have more than just a cosmic blink of an eye of an experience that we call us. So it is too easy in fact to believe that these factors are the enemy, time and death, an unbeatable foe we would rather never step into the ring with, tussle with, because even if they could be beaten, the question is, would you? There exists a tale of a man who saw just such an opportunity to beat these foes, a man who, upon beating his mentor, escaped both time and death and assumed his teacher's name, Ballad. But this man didn't feel he deserved the win, and just almost as soon as he had freed himself from ever meeting the Grim Reaper, he also gave up on life. You know, many believe it was the Buddha who said, "Life is suffering." And if true, why would anyone want an eternity of that? But it's not actually the full story, because what the Buddha actually said is life is dukkha, which it points more accurately to all things being temporary, to the very nature of impermanence, of change, conditioned states. And yes, suffering is one of those things, but so too is happiness. Yet this man, unable to accept his newfound immortality, he was only able to see the suffering, the death, the cruelty of it projected from his own deeply misaligned love for life. He did love life. He loved the life of his mentor, the one that he held for him and later a young girl whose passing he would have to witness countless times over with no comfort to ease the unfairness of it all. Living with this unjust paradox of his own eternity while she is robbed of anything close to a full life. And I think we all feel that on some level, that we are owed a certain amount of time, but fairness is again just a conditioned human state. I mean, you wouldn't tell a lion he's being unfair for eating a gazelle because it didn't eat him first, but nowhere in the natural world do we see existence mourn in advance something that it doesn't even understand is coming. So why are we humans so different? I mean, do we really understand what death is? I'd argue that we do this because we have the capacity to do it, to speculate over such premises of death and time. Though speculate is all it will ever be. But to be able to be that conscious is surely our greatest blessings, to be able to look around and wonder at these concepts. But has it become wonder? Because really, when I look around, hasn't it become a majority of people's curse? We trap ourselves in limitations of time long before the hourglass has even reached empty, endlessly existing in the unrealities of past and future timelines. And even the man became lost in these illusions. But who could blame him? After all, witnessing a cruel samsara over and over, his mind turned to freeing the girl he loved so dearly, trying to secure her a future so intensely that he became blinded to the beauty of her present. He knew of it, but he couldn't enjoy it. To the girl who wanted to paint, and the other who loved flowers, the other who loved music, her potential to experience her own true joy now, to instead go on a journey of hardship and sacrifice. And for what? For the possibility of experiencing more joy in some speculative future that may never come. And we've all done that, put living on hold for now, in the belief that we will live extra well on some tomorrow. But isn't today the tomorrow you thought about yesterday? Disconnected from the essence of mortality, the man could no longer make these distinctions. Because what was the point? What would be the point when every day of his days would just spiral endlessly into the next? How could he possibly find meaning in such a boundless, borderless, shapeless abyss? You know, much like a child who is born with billionaire parents, with limitless capital to fund their ventures. How could that child ever hope to taste success? When failure no longer has meaning, neither does success. And I'd argue death and life are no different. I'd argue that there is a way, however, not to be bound to the concepts of time and death, not to have to ignore them or push them from our minds, or treat it as a problem to be dealt with on some other day when we're older and more grey, but that we can transcend them, as many enlightened individuals over the centuries have expressed to us. Whether that's from Eckhart Tolle, who said that the only thing that is ultimately real about your journey is the step you are taking at this moment. That's all there ever is. Or Ram Dass, who I find greatly inspiring, he said, ask yourself, where am I? Answer, here. Ask yourself, what time is it? Answer, now. Say that until you can hear it. Now, these might at first sound just like lofty ideals that are only attainable by a special few, but presence is something we can all tap into. And I'd argue that if the man had done it, he would have found salvation or a comfort in his eternity, but presence in an eternity has no meaning. But for us, it can, and all it requires really is a trained awareness to do it. I say all is the greatest challenge that every single one of us is presented with, to be present, rather than lingering in the ghosts and shadows of past and futures that we can barely accurately remember, and futures that we often misconstrued in our mind. Of course, reflecting on the past, it can teach us lessons. It can be the greatest of teachers, and the future, it can steer direction and motivation. But can you honestly say that you do this to only that kind of degree, to that degree where it is productive and necessary? I know for damn sure I still can't all the time, but I'm starting to try, and my personal hope is that when the Reaper comes for me, I will say, shit, can't deny I would have liked more time. But I'm satisfied that I did great stuff with the time I had, so fine, let's go. That's my hope for whenever that day comes. And it was Tupac that said, death is not the greatest loss in life. The greatest loss is what dies inside while we're still alive. Never surrender. And I'd say that is so profoundly true. So many die before they die. So don't. Celebrate that death and time exist. Celebrate that they are there, even just as naive concepts in the back of our mind, because from them comes the sense of flow, of meaning, significance, of cycles and phases that add structure to all the wonders we experience in this life. So I feel sorry, not envious of the man who attained immortality, because he had no way to experience these wonderful yet limited structures of these phases and cycles. It all became a blur, so he had no real purpose to live as fully as you do. So do that thing that has always been in the back of your mind. Quit that fucking job that you have been meaning to quit. Find what you are passionate about, pursue it, and return to that main quest line of life that you've been sidetracked from in an endless, pointless, what sometimes feels like fetch questing. Don't be there, because have you ever considered that you might just be that man? Endless, immortal. Consider it. Even if your mind says no, consider it for the sake of it. Imagine you are him, but that you use your power instead of trying to defeat time and death, but to embrace it. That you used your power to place a veil of forgetfulness over your eyes, to forget that you were immortal. And then secondly, you placed an illusionary spell to trick your mind that time was something finite and linear. But you did it so that you could experience, truly, fully submerged in the experience of the glorious nuances of what it means to be human. So that instead of being human, suffering endless life, you are endless life experience what it is to be human. To fully explore the capabilities of your soul. To stare into the face of an unexplainable abyss. Accept it and just let go.